on this micro learning is on how to build mental health and how it helps you write your own story. So our host for today is amazing Amy Yip, who is a certified life transformation and mental fitness coach, speaker, and facilitator. This was a two-part series for those of you that joined earlier this month. Amy did one on getting unstuck. So for those new to Community of Seven, there's one singular purpose of these calls. It's to create an environment where participants can help support each other during this global crisis and beyond, and hopefully feel a little bit less lonely. So more than ever, we really need to come together as a community to support and uplift each other. So our micro learning series focuses on teaching you one thing, maybe two things, with the goal of you taking action immediately. Because one of the things I hate are these like trainings and webinars where you're like, oh, that's amazing. And then you go home and you don't really actually take those learnings for your real life. So there's going to be homework. You're going to actually live this. Amy's going to actually give us some tangible tips that you can use immediately. So if you can, please turn on your video because we want you in the conversation. If you don't, that's fine as well. But this is not like your normal webinar where you consume content passively, or a webinar where you're just kind of watching. We actually want you to be a part of the conversation and ask questions and engage. That's why this is not a webinar format, and it's actually, you know, in Zoom's normal communication, because now we can do breakout groups and you can actually communicate with each other. So quick exercise for you guys that are regulars, you know what to do. For this next activity, top right-hand side of Zoom, put yourself on gallery mode. We should look like the Brady Bunch grid. So we always start our conversations with a series of questions. So you're going to actually rate yourself on a series of 1 to 5. 1 meaning not as much, 5 meaning super strong. Okay, so 1 very weak, 5 being very strong. Okay, so you could just raise your hands. So this would be 5, this would be 1. Okay, or you could use one hand. In a crisis or chaotic situation, I calm myself and focus on taking useful action. Put your hands up. Okay, I see a lot of 5s, good, some 4s. I'm usually optimistic. I see difficulties as temporary and expect to overcome them. Okay, good. For some of you that I see 2 and 1, reach out to me if you need help on this, because I am one of the friends that are, you need to surround yourself with really optimistic people. Sometimes they annoy the heck out of you, but you always need that one friend that you call that will tell you that you look amazing, even though you look like shit. Okay, pro tip. I can tolerate high levels of ambiguity and uncertainty about situations. I adapt quickly to new developments. I'm good at bouncing back from difficulties. Jeff is getting way too enthusiastic right now. And the next one is for Jeff Harry. I'm playful. I find humor in rough situations and can laugh at myself. Okay. I'm able to recover emotionally from losses and setbacks. I have friends I can walk with, and I can express my feelings to others and ask for help. Okay. I feel self-confident, appreciate myself, and have a mental concept of who I am. Okay. So this is a rhetorical question. You don't have to raise your hands or anything. I want you to think about this. Think about, how do I, so you, typically deal with stressful situations? Think about that in your head. Do you go crazy? Do you kind of just go into a shell? Think about how you typically deal with stressful situations, because a lot of times we don't think, we just act. And the first step in any mental health recovery is understanding what your habits are and how you behave. Okay, so for this next step, please put yourself into speaker mode so you can kind of see the speaker. and we're going to start in a second. So today's discussion is on how building mental health helps you write your own story. So I want to start this off with a few quick stats. And it was really mind-blowing as I did this research because I didn't know how prevalent mental health issues were. Worldwide, 1 in 4 people will experience a mental health issue in any given year. 1 in 4. So think about the folks who are on this call. Let's say we have, right now we have 44. Let's say we have 100 people. Of this call, 20% of us are going through some type of mental anguish. 44 million US adults suffer from mental illness. Lifetime prevalence of any anxiety disorder is 31.6%. 42 million US adults have anxiety disorder, which is often the most common mental illness in America. 350 million people worldwide suffer from depression. So the folks on this call, we have people sometimes from Asia and Europe. This is a global phenomenon. This is just not, a US issue. The percentage of youth aged 12 to 17, this was kind of stark for me. 13% of youth aged 12 to 17, or 3.1 million kids, suffer from depression. So my daughter right now is 6. That stat is frightening for me, because she's going to be getting into high school in a few years. And we need to really, as parents, we need to really be able to be cognizant of what we're teaching to our kids now. So I'm so excited that Amy is going to be speaking on this issue today. 4% of adults have suicidal thoughts, or around 10 million in the US. And at some point in almost everyone's life, we will experience mental health crisis or a challenge. So recently I shared my mental health issues, 2 mental health issues that I had recently on LinkedIn. One was when I had postpartum depression after I had my daughter 6 years ago. And the second happened after I got laid off last year at the start of the pandemic. I was taught to be private about my emotions by my parents. I grew up from a pretty traditional Vietnamese family, and I didn't really know how else to kind of be, because that's all I knew. And I was taught that it was shameful to talk about your feelings, especially if they were considered a weakness. So it was something that I thought mental health issues were something to be ashamed of. So that's a reason why I am so vocal about my mental health issues, and I'm so transparent about it. I don't want people to suffer alone. So I'm going to be really, really honest. If my mother-in-law wasn't with me during that time when I had depression, postpartum depression, after I gave birth, I don't know what I would have done to myself. It was that bad. And if I didn't have her, I wonder where I'd be. So if you get just one thing from this conversation, it's this: whatever temporary issue you are going through right now, job loss of a loved one, fear, anxiety, loneliness, this too shall pass. You're not alone. Look at the folks who are on this call. You can reach out to us, find us on chat or whatnot, or on LinkedIn. I know there's a few folks on here that would lend you an ear. So another thing I want you to take away is that you can strengthen your resolve and mental resiliency. And this is why we have Amy Yip on the line. I saw Amy at another event a month ago, and I was just so awestruck by her brilliance and wit and her message. And so I really wanted to kind of take her message to this group. So Amy is a certified life transformation and mental fitness coach. She's a speaker, a facilitator. She's worked with leaders throughout the world, and she helps them let go of their shoulds and write the narrative that they want to tell. So after 16 years leading global teams at companies like Google, Booz Allen Hamilton, Clorox, Amy left the corporate world. She sold all of her belongings in New York City and took a one-way flight to Ghana with her husband to volunteer at a breast cancer nonprofit. This was until May, and then COVID happened. So she ended up getting stuck in Ghana for 7 months. And mental fitness is what helped her find the courage to pursue her dreams, pivot her dreams during COVID, and discover the gift and opportunity in every circumstance. So, Amy, without further ado, tell us more about your journey and kind of how this group can really focus on mental resiliency. And before, if you guys have any questions during the call, or if you want to ask it, you can go into the chat and I'll be looking out for your questions. We got a question from Janelle Shepard on LinkedIn. You know, what techniques, Amy, can we use to support well-being? So just free for all, like what should the group know about mental resiliency, why it's important, and what are some, you know, tips and tricks you can kind of share?
Yes, so I will actually put together a presentation to help guide us through this. So hopefully, can everyone see that? Yeah, okay. So this is a topic, I'm not going to talk too much about myself because 2 weeks ago I already shared my entire story. So if you want to get to know me, you can definitely watch the recording of that. But thank you everyone for being here today. I'm Amy, as Lan mentioned, and it's an absolute honor and privilege to be here with everyone today. And the purpose of today is to really take you through boosting your mental fitness, what it is, why it's important, and then we'll go through how to actually strengthen your mental muscles. I'll be speaking for maybe 25-30 minutes, and throughout the presentation, I'll be asking questions. So let's make this interactive. And if you do have questions, put it into the chat and Lan will just flag me and throw the question out, okay? And the payoff is when you strengthen your mental fitness, you'll be able to develop mastery over your own mind. Because how many of you have held back from something due to fear of some sort, or maybe self-doubt, whether it's a career, it's a hobby, a relationship, or something else, right? A part of you said, this is going to be awesome. And then that fear stepped in and said, and here's a whole list of why not. It's a bad idea because you'll fail, you'll look dumb, you'll be humiliated, or whatever other gazillion things it tells you. And when you're able to develop mastery over your own mind, you'll ultimately reach your full potential so that you can be the author of your own life. And this ultimately leads to greater happiness, greater success, and you get unstuck from these mind patterns. And as humans, we love patterns. And if you look at all the thoughts that you have and your mind, they're repeated, they're patterns, right? So it's how can we learn to stop self-sabotaging so that you can be the author of your own life. And as a starting point, what is mental fitness? Anybody have wild guess? Take yourself off mute. Any guesses? What is mental fitness?
This is Janelle. Hi, good afternoon.
Hi.
Being able to adjust to situations and like at least know where your emotions are and process them, and I guess recognize it in anyone. So
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Janelle. So exactly, mental fitness is your capacity to respond to life's challenges with positive mindset rather than getting upset and stressed. And if we were to use a physical analogy to bring this to life, if you have average physical fitness, then you can climb small hills easily. But if a big mountain is put in front of you and your physical fitness isn't strong enough to handle it, then as you're climbing, you'll be out of breath, you'll be physically stressed, and it'll be hard for you to handle it. And the same thing is happening to many of us with what is going on in the world today with the pandemic and working from home and politics and race relations and more. So most of us are of average mental fitness. And what that means is you're able to handle the hills of life with relatively okay levels of stress. But what's happening in the world right now is this huge mountain of challenge. And so using this analogy, what you begin to see is possibility, right? This thing is getting me all stressed out. I'm not really able to handle all that it brings without being upset and stressed. But maybe I shouldn't be blaming the mountain. Maybe the mountain is just a mountain, and maybe that's not a bad thing necessarily. And maybe the question I can be asking myself is, how do I build up my mental fitness so that I can climb this mountain, so that I can handle the challenges around me in such a way that I'm going to be in positive emotions rather than all stressed out and upset? And imagine when you do get to the other side of the mountain. And as Lan said, this too shall pass. We will get to the other side of the mountain. But what happens for the rest of your life? The rest of your life is likely going to give you mid-level hills to climb. And you'll be thinking, hey, this is a piece of cake. I was able to climb that huge mountain, so my level of stress is lower than it ever was. And that's why mental fitness matters, right? If a lot of us want to change, it's the new year, it's January. The thing is, only 20% of change is mental muscle and habit, or is insight and knowledge. And that's why you can go read tons of books, you can attend workshop after workshop, and you get really, really excited after, but nothing changes. It's because 20% of change is based on that insight and knowledge, but 80% of it is mental muscle and habit. So for example, who here wants to get healthier? Raise your hand if you do. And who knows what you need to do to get healthier? I'm sure everyone knows this, right? Like eat better, work out, sleep more. So what's standing in your way? Right? We all have the knowledge, we all have the insight, and that's why we can't change, because we have that knowledge, but we don't have the mental muscle and the habit built in. So that's why growing your mental fitness is so critical, and why it is an important ingredient to building lasting change and happiness. So what I want to spend time today on is a quick background on the research. We'll go through the 3 core muscles and then how to put it all together, and we'll do some practices during it. So jumping straight in, the whole concept of mental fitness, as I'm talking about it today, is based on research called positive intelligence. And it is conducted by Shirzad Shamin, who was the CEO of CTI, a really large coach training organization. He coaches executives, he's a Stanford lecturer, he's a researcher. And this research was done on over 500,000 participants from 50 countries. I'm not going to spend time today on the research. If you want to know the research, you can pick up the book on Amazon and read to your heart's delight. But what I want to do is share the research, which basically found that there are 3 core muscles at the root of mental fitness. It's the saboteur interceptor, the sage, and the self-command muscle. So those are the 3 muscles. And I'm sure you're probably wondering, what the heck are those 3 things? And I'm glad you asked, because I will jump into explaining those. So the first core muscle is the saboteur interceptor muscle. And in order to understand saboteurs, we should talk about the survival brain, because survival is our number 1 priority. So very early on in life, we all learned survival strategies to keep us safe, to keep us secure, and to keep us accepted. And this dates back to early caveman, cavewoman days. What did we have to survive from? It was this, the saber-toothed tiger. So back during our caveman, cavewoman days, we needed to survive from the saber-toothed tiger. When it came, we had to decide, do you fight, flight, or freeze? We also needed to be liked and accepted into the tribe for survival reasons too. Because if you think about it, are you more likely to survive the tiger when you're alone or when you're with a tribe, right? You'd most likely survive when you're with others. And even though our minds have evolved over the last 150, 200,000 years since our caveman, cavewoman days, unfortunately, our minds still operate in much the same way. And that's why we are constantly looking around, assessing, am I fitting in? Am I doing something that might potentially get me rejected? Am I special? Am I worthy enough? And so our mind today, it's constantly assessing. That's why we're scrolling through Instagram and Facebook and wondering, what do I need to do in order to fit in and get approval? And we're constantly assessing and judging. And that's why among the saboteurs, the judge is the master of them all. It's the saboteur that all human beings have to some extent. And I promise you, you have it, I have it, your spouse has it, your friends have it, your colleagues have it, we all have it. And the judge tends to judge in three different ways. Judgment of self, which many of us know as the inner critic, judgment of others, and it could be the voice that's sizing everyone up, that's saying, oh, that one's too dumb, this one's too ugly, that one's too tall. So it's constantly finding what's wrong with others. And then the third mode is the judgment of circumstances. And not everyone is even aware that they're doing it, but it sounds something like this. I will be happy when. I am not happy right now until. I am waiting for the pandemic to be over because it is bad. And when it is over, I will be happy. So the judgment of circumstances also causes a lot of stress and a lot of waiting to be happy. So the judge is the master saboteur, and then there are 9 accomplice saboteurs. And they are controller, hyperachiever, restless, stickler, pleaser, hypervigilant, avoider, victim, and hyper rational. What a cast of characters, right? And I'm sure a lot of you might be thinking, oh yeah, that nails it. My boss has the stickler and it drives me up the wall, or my partner has the avoider and it frustrates me, or my kid definitely has the victim. And I don't encourage you to be focusing on other people's saboteurs right now, because to build your own mental fitness, you want to get intimately familiar with your own saboteur. So what I want everyone here to do is focus on, who are your saboteurs? How do you tend to cause your own stress? How do you impact your relationships negatively, or your performance negatively? Because I guarantee this is how you tend to self-sabotage. It's always the combination of the judge and one or more of the accomplice saboteurs. The other thing I want to encourage everyone is not to feel bad about it. We all have saboteurs, right? And it is normal. It's how our brains were wired. It is the survival brain that's trying to help you fit in and to survive, and not to fail.
Amy, can I ask you a quick
Mhm.
question? Can
Yeah.
you be a few of those? Like, is there just one prominent, or can you be like 2 or 3 of them?
You can be many of them, which is a great question, because here's my results. So if you go to positiveintelligence.com, you can take the free saboteur assessment and you'll get results to show you which are your top saboteurs. So this is mine, right? My top ones are controller, pleaser, and hyperachiever. And a few things to note. One is, just because I have an 8.8 on controller, and let's say, Lan, you have a 0, that does not mean I am 8.8 times more controlling than you are. So these are relative to your own scores. You can't really compare two people. So it's really trying to take a look at, based on you, where are your scores?
Can you repeat what that website is again with the test?
Positiveintelligence.com.
Okay, thank you.
And so you'll get results like this. And the way the assessment helps you, so we're talking about that first muscle, which is the saboteur interceptor, right? So how it helps you is that after you take the assessment, you'll get a list of all of these, and then it will give you a detailed description afterwards of each of those saboteurs, right? And like the characteristics, the thoughts, the feelings. So you'll receive a description of each one. And this will help you begin to see the ways your saboteur lies to you. When your saboteur is in your head, when the saboteur is trying to self-sabotage you. And it's almost like posting a wanted poster for a criminal so that you can catch it. So we basically have created, like if you go, you take the assessment, you look at the descriptions, now you know how to recognize your saboteur when it shows up. And it always starts with awareness. So when you're aware of the lies, when you recognize it happening and the patterns in your mind, you can then intercept it and say, oh, there you are again, you're lying. And you can even give them names. So I also have hypervigilant as one of my top ones, and I've named that worrier, Miss Worrier. So when it shows up, I'm like, oh, Miss Worrier, there you are again, and you're lying. So that was the first muscle, which is the saboteur interceptors, really understanding how you tend to self-sabotage, what your saboteurs are, and the lies that it tells you. Okay. And the goal really is recognizing all of its lies. So the second core muscle is SAGE. So what is SAGE? It is important to know that saboteur and SAGE actually live in different parts of the brain. So if I were to put your brain under an MRI scan, like we would be able to see different parts of your brain activated. And so the saboteurs actually live in the part of your brain that we call the survival brain, what we talked about earlier. And that's where the saber-toothed tiger and do I fight, flight, freeze, and how do I fit in? That's the left brain. The sage lives in a different part of the brain. It's the middle prefrontal cortex. It's where the empathy circuitry is. It's part of the right brain. And there's 2 entire chapters in positive intelligence that goes into this. I don't want to worry you with all of the details, but the thing to be aware of is that they are in different parts of your brain. And when you activate one side or the other, I could put your brain under an MRI scan and you can see which side is more active depending on your emotions. So the sage is on the thriving side of the brain, and it is associated with positive emotions, peace and calm, clear-headed focus, creativity, a lot of positive emotions, and it operates from a sage perspective. And this perspective, the sage perspective, is that every outcome or circumstance can be turned into a gift and opportunity. So every outcome or circumstance can be turned into a gift and opportunity, coronavirus included. And your saboteur will likely tell you, this is stupid, this is silly, this is dangerous, this is naive. And that part of your brain, if you are activated by that part of your brain, will say, this is dumb. But when you activate the sage side, you will know that this is really how the world works, and there's a positive outcome. There's a gift in every outcome circumstance. Okay. And to bring this to life, I want to tell you a story, and it's one of my favorite stories, and it tells you the wisdom of the sage. So there's an old farmer that lives on his farm with his teenage son. And he also has a beautiful stallion that he lovingly cares for. And the stallion is his most prized possession. The farmer enters his stallion into the annual county fair competition, and his stallion wins first prize. And the farmer's neighbors gather to congratulate him on his great win. And he calmly says, "Who knows what is good? Who knows what is bad?" His neighbors are completely puzzled, but they go away. And then the next week, some thieves who heard about the stallion's increased value steal the horse. And when the neighbors come to commiserate with the farmer, they find him again very calm, gathered, and he says, "Who knows what is good? Who knows what is bad?" And again, his neighbors are completely puzzled, but they go away. And a few weeks later, the farmer's son is riding the stallion and is thrown off one of these new mares as he's trying to break it in, and his leg is fractured. And as the neighbors gather to commiserate with the old farmer, he once again reminds them, "Who knows what is good and who knows what is bad?" So they're puzzled again. They go away. And the following week, the imperial army marches through the village and they're looking for young men to go to war. The old farmer's son is spared because his leg is fractured. And the neighbors no longer bother to come to congratulate the farmer because they know the farmer's response. What is he going to say? And you can say it with me so we can all remember. Who knows what is good and who knows what is bad? And there's profound wisdom in this story. And if there's nothing else that you remember today, remember the stallion story, because it changes everything when you begin to bring this perspective to everything. And Albert Einstein once said, "The most important decision we make is whether we believe we live in a friendly or hostile universe." So my question for everyone here is, what do you believe? And the answer to this question determines our entire experience of life. And whether we realize it or not, we're always acting from one of these perspectives. And research has shown what you're calling your experience, only 20% of it comes from the actual external circumstances. 80% comes from the information inside your brain. And I'm curious, and you can think about this and you can share it in your small groups too. But can you think of a situation where at the time it just felt like it was really bad, but then later it turned out that it was a gift? For me, an easy one, all of those bad relationships where during the breakups, you're like, "Oh man, this sucks. My heart is breaking and everything." And then, but had those not happened, I wouldn't be with my amazing husband today. Right? That's a very simple one, but this happens to all of us. There's always a gift and opportunity in everything. So we went through the saboteur interceptor, which was really getting to know how you tend to self-sabotage. And then the second one is the sage muscle, which is being able to pause and say, okay, what might be the gift and opportunity in this circumstance? And the third one is the self-command muscle. And this is where we will do some practice. So before we get into this, who thinks they are in control of their own mind? Any hands?
I think that depends on the day. I think generally. Do you mean generally?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So my question is, how many still live and respond from a place of anxiety, stress, frustration, restlessness, guilt, shame, anger, even though you know it doesn't serve you? So the thing I want to be able to look everyone in the eye here, the ones that I can see on the screen, is I want to boldly be able to look at you and say, you are not in command of your own mind. If you haven't built up your self-command muscle, you are not in command of your own mind. And how do I know? It's because if you were in command of your own mind, would you really command yourself to wake up at 3 a.m. and worry about things that you don't have control over? If you were in command of your own mind, would you really impatiently be waiting for the crisis to be over so that you can be happier again. None of us choose to have these negative emotions and stress. So if you aren't choosing it, then why is it happening? And it's because you aren't running the show. You're not running your own mind. Your mind is running you. And so what we want to do with the third muscle is the self-command muscle. So you can observe yourself and which mode you're in and command your mind to shift. So that's what really makes a difference. So what we are going to do here is something called a PQ rep. PQ stands for positive intelligence quotient, right? And it's the goal here is to be able to command your mind and bring it back so that you're in control. So for physical fitness, if I want to build up my bicep, I pick up a weight and I might do some like dumbbell presses, a bunch of reps. The equivalent of a dumbbell rep for building self-command muscle, which are the fibers right under your forehead, is a PQ rep. So we're going to do a few different versions. The first one, you can keep your eyes open, you can keep it closed, but, and Lan, you've done this one, but taking 2 fingertips and gently rub them against each other with such attention that you feel both fingertip ridges on both fingers. Okay, and that was about 10 seconds, more or less. Now, if I were to put your brain under an MRI scan, you would notice just slightly it quieted the region of your brain where the saboteurs live, and it activated the other region of your brain where the sage lives, right? And that was just 10 seconds. 10 seconds is the equivalent of 1 rep. And that won't change everything, but what if you did these things all the time? It'll build you up into like a Jedi warrior that commands herself not to be stressed, right? You can just command your mind. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. So we can try another one. So you can, again, keep your eyes open or you can close your eyes, but we'll use sound. So please close your eyes or keep it open. And let's start with really hearing my voice and hearing the nuances about my voice that you tend not to notice. Become exquisitely aware of the tone, timbre, and pitch of my voice. And of course, I'll need to keep talking for you to do that. So here I am, I'm still talking. Okay, I think you've got that. Now, that was about 20 seconds or so, maybe. So 2 reps. You can also focus your attention on one thing in front of you. So if you take a look at something that's in front of you, focus on it with such attention. See the colors, the shape, the texture of what you're looking at. Notice all the visual details. And if you catch yourself thinking about what you're looking at and analyzing it, just command your mind to come back. Just look at the details with curiosity. Great job. So that was another 10 seconds. So there's like a dozen or more ways of being able to do this, but the whole idea is to be able to command your mind to come back. So those are the 3 muscles: the saboteur interceptor, the sage, the self-command. And I'm going to walk you through putting it all together. So the simplicity of the 3 muscles is the operating system it brings. So we know life isn't easy, life's challenging. So being able to put all of this together in all situations will help you to build your mental fitness. So step 1 is really, if you're feeling negative emotions, and you'll know it, right? Like your heart might start racing and you have these thoughts in your head. First step is to notice it. And as soon as you do, stop. It doesn't matter who's doing what to you. It doesn't matter what just happened in the world. If you're feeling negative emotions for more than a second and reacting to it, then stop. You know that you're in saboteur mode, right? You already know the lie. If you do the test and you get the descriptions back, you know the lies it tells you. And so you can name it. You can say, oh, there you go again. I see you. I know you're lying. And don't get upset with yourself, but call it out. The second step is to do the PQ reps. So shifting your awareness. You can choose one that you like, and depending on how challenging the issue is that you're facing, you might need to do a few minutes, or maybe a shorter one will be okay, but it just depends on what you're going through and what the challenge is. So shift your awareness by doing PQ reps, pick one that resonates with you. And then the final step is activating your sage, right? And that's the perspective we talked about. In this moment, how do I generate a gift and opportunity? What is the gift and opportunity? And because you shifted, you're in a positive state and you can be able to see, like, okay, well, what might this gift and opportunity be? So what we've done today is learn to shift with the 3 steps, very high level, 3 easy steps. And the way that I want everyone to think of today, it's the equivalent of watching a how-to video on the foundations of getting your 6-pack. Like, here's how to do crunches, right? It's the foundational elements. And a 6-pack requires intense initial practice. It requires you to learn advanced moves later, like you want to learn planks and you want to do Russian twist, and you need a coach or a trainer, right? So I invite you, if you want to learn more about what it means to embark on mental fitness journey, like, you can feel free to reach out to me, find somebody here to be your accountability partner, and practice together. It requires daily practice. That is it.
Awesome.
In terms of the presentation.
That was amazing, Amy. I want to kind of open it up before we do a quick breakout group. Any questions before we kind of go into a breakout group? You can either unmute yourself and ask a question, or you can just put yourself in the chat. Any questions? I thought it was really powerful how you kind of talk about acknowledging the feeling or what's going on. And it's funny, because I talked about my depression. And the reason why I talk about it so much is that I realized that when I was trying to keep it private and I had this shame tied to being depressed, that's when it was building. Like, literally, the more I tried to hide it, the more it just kind of felt like it was eating me alive. When then I started talking about it kind of frankly to people, like just in conversations and friends, it felt like it had less weight and it had less power over me.
Yeah. And I love that you openly share that, because I always use the analogy that it's like having your hand on a hot stove. And when you try to hide it and you don't try to openly talk about it and you try to ignore it and push it away, it's like keeping your hand on the hot stove and looking away and hoping that it will magically disappear. And it's not going to magically disappear. The only way to be able to move on past it is to actually take a look at your hand that's on the hot stove, process that it's on there, and then make a decision. What do I want to do now? Do I want to keep it on here, or do I want to take it off?
Yeah. Let's do one question. Jeff, if you could unmute yourself, I'm putting you in the spot, and ask your question to Amy. Jeff Harry.
My question is, what if you find that the PQs aren't working? What would be your next steps or suggestions if you try
do longer PQ reps? And honestly, so it's your mental fitness, the types of challenges you'll be able to handle is dependent on how strong your muscles are, right? Like, if you're just starting off, it's like going to the gym and having done like 5-pound weights and then you're trying to lift a 50-pound weight. It's not going to happen. You need to keep practicing and building it and believing that I'm building my muscle, I'll be able to handle it. And you will get there as long as you keep working on it. And so it really depends on the challenge you're working with. The longer the challenge, the longer PQ reps you want to do. Like, you want to run a marathon, you go to the gym and maybe you'll run like 7 miles before you get, yeah.
Awesome. So we're going to do a really quick breakout group. I'm just going to make it really general because we have like about 5-10 minutes. If you can just maybe talk about how are you feeling right now, and just, you know, like, and you could just kind of talk about how you're feeling at this moment. And you might want to also bring in kind of with Amy, what are the things that you're going to be doing? Remember I said about homework, right? What are you going to be doing after this call? Kind of moving forward, the lessons that you learned from Amy today. So I'm going to break you out into groups. I will see you guys on the other side. So you're going to start getting moved